Hello there. This is Shae Spitz with Living in Nebraska, and today we are going to be talking about daycares. I don't want to say dreaded word of daycares, but I think every parent has struggled with daycare in some way, shape, or form. Here we are talking about daycares in Columbus, Nebraska. So I want to welcome you to my channel or welcome you back to my channel. And today we are going to be talking with Brittany and talking more about daycares here in Columbus at 1C Church, also known as Bright Stars. So let's jump on in. Okay, we are here with Brittany Sempek with Bright Stars, or also known as 1C
Childcare
and Preschool. So tell us a little bit about, you guys obviously just opened up right over a year ago, which worked out very well for me and my situation. My daycare lady announced that she was leaving, and then you guys opened up like a week later, so it was perfect. But tell us a little bit about the struggles that you've kind of experienced over the last 2 years, I'm sure, because it's been more in the works than just a year.
Yeah, actually, it's really only been about 18 months in the works. Pastor had been asking me for quite some time, for about 3 years, to open up a daycare. And I just kept telling him no, because from my past experience in daycare, sometimes you're going to just get staff that's maybe not so loving, or it's staff is just the really hard part. Like, are you going to find good quality staff that are dependable, that really love the children, and that, will make for a good program that you can stand behind? And so I kept telling him no, like, I don't know if that's a thing, and this kind of the reason why a lot of daycares fail is when they don't have great staff, and then the daycare gets bad reputation, and it all just kind of spirals out of control. So my big fear was staff, and that was my biggest struggle. Right off the bat, though, we ended up with four absolutely amazing staff that are still with us from day one. And since then, it has just been really awesome staff. And so I guess staffing can be a struggle for me when there's a lot of illnesses going around and trying to maintain ratios. We appreciate and respect parents' need to go to work. And so, being able to maintain those ratios, so that whether my assistant director steps in or if I step in to cover ratios so that we can stay open. And then, parents, they need their children to be healthy so that they can bring them to daycare so they can go to work. So I would say illnesses are probably our number one struggle. I think that with the closing of other daycares in town, it made parents respect daycare a little bit more and the prices of it.
Yeah.
Because I think what contributed to the other daycares closing then was they were just losing so much money, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year they would be losing money on. And so we definitely, when we were creating this program, had to find a good balance of what is an appropriate amount to pay versus like what will keep us afloat, And so when you really look at it, daycares really don't make a whole lot of money.
No.
And that was a big thing for me was I don't want to be in this to make money. I want to be in this to provide something positive and good for the community.
So, because we had two big facilities here in Columbus closed down a couple years ago, which it was pretty short notice.
Yes.
And if anybody's had that overwhelming experience of needing to find daycare, because obviously you need to go to work, you can't bring your kids to work. Why do you said that they were losing hundreds of thousands of dollars? Why do you think that is? Because if you're talking to a parent, childcare is probably one of the most expensive things per month that we look at, especially if you have 2, 3, 4 or more kids, because sometimes people can't justify paying for daycare. They'd rather just stay home, but for their sanity and everything else, it makes sense to send them to daycare. But why do you think childcare or daycares fail due to finances if it's one of the most expensive things for a family to be able to pay for?
Right. Well, so as a church, we are actually required to offer benefits to our employees over 30 hours a week. So benefits are a huge cost to us. And then you just have all of the taxes, a lot of the overhead costs. There's just a lot of things that add up that you don't, because if you were to just do like the easy numbers, this is what we pay, this is how many kids we have, look at all of this.
Yeah.
But then if you were to look at, well, what does arts and crafts cost you? What do snacks cost you? What does insurance cost you? And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, and so what we try to do is, so we have our main teachers that are our lead full-time staff. And then outside of that, we have a lot of part-time staff so that we can, if we're down on ratios, we can kind of cut some of those costs by just sending them home. And so a lot of stuff, it's really, and that makes a huge difference. It doesn't seem like a couple hours a week here and there to a few different staff make a big deal, but it makes a huge, huge difference. So I think that just being responsible with how we spend money, not saying that the other centers did not do that responsibly, but I think you just have to be very conscious of it. Another thing that has helped us out is that it's not just Columbus that has like a childcare crisis. It is all of the country. So since COVID came out, there has been this ARPA fund, and they have acknowledged the childcare crisis in Nebraska. And so they have actually been sending out a lot of grants and whatnot. So I was actually able to get a pretty significant grant last year. That's awesome. And part of that was giving, I think it was like $40,000 in bonuses to my staff.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so quarterly we will do bonuses where I am like rewarding them on their attendance, because attendance is such a big thing here. You need to come to work so that we have staff for children. And so based off of their attendance, they'll get a bonus based off of their attitude, their willingness to be a team player, their willingness to be flexible when, hey, we're really down low in this room. Can you hop over into this room? And so we're able to reward our staff for their hard work. And I think that that really has been helping to just promote good attitude, attendance, and just positive work environment here. So the grants have really been a huge, huge help, especially in the first year, getting us off of our feet, because there's a lot more costs than there is income the first year. So that has really helped us this first year.
I would say, I mean, that's kind of the probably the failures for most businesses is they're not paying attention to their bottom dollar. You know, I mean, to somebody else, like, oh, I might pay X amount of money per week. Well, they have 10 kids in that one room and 2 staff. You know, if you add up the calculations, it looks like they make a lot of money, but they don't take into consideration the overhead, the building expenses, the utilities, the insurance, all of those things that are going to be more costly than the actual wage itself. And I think if somebody or the community people realize the cost of that, like you said, they respect it a lot more, especially after those other 2 facilities close down, because if parents can't go to work, then those other businesses can't thrive and operate. And then that's obviously what keeps our community going round in every community. And going back to really giving back to your employees, that's very important, especially in a daycare setting when you have a lot of little kids who, as parents, you know, I'm sure we all get very upset and angry, you know, but you got to make sure that you have the right staff and the good people to be able to keep that composure. You obviously, I'm assuming, pay for training for them to continue training. Or you bring training here, whatever it might be. But it's also the culture of a business.
Is so important.
It is so important. And I think that's something that so many businesses fail to recognize. That it's not just about the pay, it's not just about the benefits, but it's the culture too. Like, you want a good culture where people are looking forward to coming into work and not dreading it. You know, so I guess what sets 1C or Bright Stars separate, or what sets you guys different than maybe some of the other childcare facilities, whether in-home or facilities themselves?
So I think, first of all, our center itself is super unique in that we occupy the space formerly the YMCA. So I think that like the space itself is super different. We have 2 gyms here, and we have the field house where they can go play in the inflatables. We have drift trikes and wiggle cars. So when it's too cold to go outside, we can still get our wiggles out. You know, young kids have so much energy. And if they don't get that energy out, then you're going to experience a little bit more issues. And so I feel like just the culture in the classroom, the environment is so much calmer because we have so much more room to go and get those wiggles out and get that energy out in a positive way. So I think that the center itself is unique, but then I think that our staff are genuinely, they are caring, loving people, and they love children with all of their hearts. And so that's been really wonderful to see. They do awesome social emotional skills. When I have asked kindergarten teachers what they want from their preschoolers entering kindergarten, the number one answer is social emotional skills. They say, we'll teach them their name, we'll teach them their ABCs. We need social emotional skills. And so I think that Miss Tessa here really excels at teaching them social emotional coping skills. And then on top of that, we have enrolled in Rooted in Relationships.
Okay.
And so that is, it's a 3-year program. And it really just focuses on how do we deepen relationships with the children so that when they're having these big emotions, they trust us to come to us with these big emotions and help us work through them. So instead of saying like, oh, you're throwing a fit, go sit in timeout. It's going to be, let me come sit down with you. Like, naming your emotion. This is what you're feeling. And how can we work through it? And then it's identifying like how to be proactive about it. Like I can see that every day during this time, we have this behavior. What can we do to kind of shift the environment, to shift the schedule around so that we can, or maybe it's even changing the language that we're saying and how we're saying it. So that is, since we have enrolled in that, let's see here, I think it was in August, that has just already the benefits of that program have been immense. So
that's amazing. That's interesting because I don't think it's just children who need that.
Right.
I think adults need it. So you teach that to adults, but I think that I really do. I think so many adults have never learned how to control their emotions and they go based off of reaction. So then that's why things escalate to a whole nother level that it didn't need to. But in all reality, I think that's amazing because as you know, my daughter, she's got a lot of emotions. But I really think that's interesting that you say that because I've noticed over the last 2 months or a couple months, things have been getting a little bit better for her too. And it could be age, but she's got a lot of emotions and it's learning how to manage those emotions and understand why she's having those emotions. And instead of lashing out and hitting or scratching or whatever, finding other ways to kind of cope with that.
Yep. It's been absolutely amazing, that program has. And it breaks the cycle because then those children, they're going to grow up and they're going to be able to better manage their emotions. And then they'll be able to teach that to their children too. So it's helping our staff because like you said, adults need it too. And then it's helping the children and as they grow up. So it's just kind of being like a really well-rounded program to be a part of.
And I think another thing that probably, in my opinion, and I think this goes for schools too, that a lot of I don't want to say problems or issues stem from, but kind of stem from at home because you can only do so much at daycare. And I think vice versa. Like if you have a really good home life and you're going to a daycare where things are not ran very well, you're going to see that negative impact at home and vice versa. You guys might be doing everything you can, but then the home life might be a little bit of a struggle due to finances. Because when your finances are struggling, the last thing that's on your mind is, okay, are they eating something healthy? No, you're just looking for something to get them nourished and whatnot. And, but I don't know, do you see a lot of problems with parenting styles? I mean, is there ways or resources that parents could kind of seek help at all?
Absolutely. So the United Way and part of Rooted in Relationships, they do provide parent classes as well. And so then we'll put those brochures like at the check-in desk and whatnot. And we try to get that information out to the parents so that they can go attend classes. Sometimes when we're having some issues with parents, we like to ask them, what do you guys do at home? So, because I think consistency is really important. Children thrive when they know what their boundaries are and when things are consistent. And so if we can give clear expectations and boundaries and then follow what parents do at home, it really does help out to just make things a lot more fluid.
Yeah, that's funny. Boundaries. I mean, yes, you need boundaries, but I think every child also pushes those boundaries. At least my kids do. They do. They know. But I've always told my kids, I said, one thing I promise is that I will never let you win. So if I tell you no, or if I tell you that we're not going to do something or something along those lines, as hard as it is, because then I think that's where a lot of parents will eventually give in because it would be easier. But I think the more you can stick to what you said and not give in, it'll be easier in the long run.
It will be. And then for the child, knowing that that's going to continue when they go to the daycare as well, so that there's not one expectation at home and one at daycare. And so I think it's really important that not, being equal doesn't necessarily mean the same for everybody. But it helps, we try to make it customized as possible because what works for one child is not going to work for another child. And if you're doing something different at home than we are here, then it's just confusing to them.
Absolutely. They're trying to just figure out life like us adults too, because I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess where do you see your daycare facility going? Are you looking to grow more? Are you happy with where it's at now? Do you guys have plans in the future?
Yeah. So we actually we occupy 3 out of the 4 racquetball courts here.
Oh.
And so we do have a 4th one. It is the 4th one's still a racquetball court.
Yep.
So we would actually just need to make that one into another classroom. So the hope is to have 2 infant rooms, 2 toddler rooms, and 2 preschool rooms.
Okay.
Right now we have 2 infant, 2 toddler, and 1 preschool room. So we have the 3 4s together. So we're hoping by June at the very latest that we will have the 3 and 4-year-olds separated.
Oh, wow.
And so that we can just do a little bit more developmentally appropriate curriculum with the older ones and just kind of hone in on some of those skills that maybe the 3-year-olds are just starting to learn.
Well, and I think that's also what sets you guys apart too, is how you structure your curriculum, because there's really not a start and stop like you do have, like you have with other preschools. You know, you start in August and you end in May. You guys kind of do it year round, right?
Yep.
But it's also really nice because kids get more of a break rather than being in school from 8 to 3 or 3:30. It's kind of an all day thing. But they get a little bit more breaks and fun time and, you know, like you said, getting all those wiggles out. So, what made you decide to go that direction?
You know, when I was a preschool teacher at a daycare, I feel like Columbus is a little bit behind when it comes to that, because when I was in Lincoln and Omaha, that's how they model their daycares to be, is that they are school, even when they're 2. It is school. And then you come here and it's like, well, it's just playtime all day long. What can we use our time a little bit better? And so I started to like implement curriculum. And then what really hit was I noticed that because it was harder for parents to accept right away, you know. And so I would notice that parents who would pull their children out to go to an external preschool, those children would cry. And they would say, I don't want to go. I sit down and I do worksheets all day long. I don't want to go. I don't want to do it, Mom. I want to stay here. We learn here. And seeing that, it was like, you know, that is really hard for a kid when they're 3 or 4 years old to just sit. And I don't think that they're doing things wrong. I think that that's kind of how it's been done, you know? And I think that they do learn a lot, but I think that just what's more developmentally appropriate. Let's sit and let's do learning time for a little bit. And then let's go take a break. Let's come back and do this learning time. And so there's a lot more breaks. And then you don't see the behaviors when you're giving the child those breaks. I had to do a 6-hour class a few weeks ago and I could not sit still. Like I was standing up, I was walking around the room, and I was just like, oh my goodness, how do my poor children do this in school all day long?
True. It is so true.
It really is. And so it's funny that we expect little children to sit at a table and do worksheets and do one project after another when I myself can't even do that. And so I really think it's beneficial to just integrate it throughout your day. And then, you know, when you're gone, you don't really have to worry about making stuff up. And it's just kind of just part of your day.
Well, and I think that maybe the reason people maybe pulled their kids out of here to take them somewhere else is because it's not the norm. And even for myself, I was not aware that it was kind of a year-round thing. And so when it came time for school, I remember reaching out to you. I'm like, hey, when is the first day of school? And you're like, oh no, we've been doing it. I'm like, huh? Like, I don't understand. Can you explain that?
How we do it?
So yeah. So it was different for me, but now, but it totally makes sense. But at first it wasn't. I was like, okay, when do we start school? Because I still got the book bag, you know, because the other kids go to school. So I still made a big deal out of it for my little girl. But
and we want that. We want the children to acknowledge this is school.
Yes.
So I think that that's good for them, for the parents to take it seriously, the kids to take it seriously.
It's just there's no start and stop. So I don't know if people were pulling them out because they didn't understand that concept, but it's not. I like the concept a lot better because.
Well, and this was 10 years ago too, when I had at another daycare here in town, and that's when they would pull them out to go to preschool. And I couldn't, and now fast forward, people are more accepting of it. It still seems weird to them, but they're a lot more accepting of it now. So, but 10 years ago, nope, they would still pull them out for preschool. And there was nothing I could do. We would do portfolios. We would do parent teacher conferences. we would have like songs and concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
But there was nothing I could do to convince parents that this is school.
Yeah.
It's nope, this is daycare.
So is that something that you guys want to do, is like Christmas programs and stuff, or conferences and school pictures and all of that?
You betcha. Yep. So, and especially once we get that 4-year-old classroom opened up, we'll definitely get a lot more thorough with it. So.
Yeah. Trying to teach a bunch of infants and toddlers and 3-year-olds how to sing would be quite comical and interesting. So
right. Stay on your little marker.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome though. No, I appreciate you guys opening up, because like I said, I mean, for me, it was a lifesaver. For me and a couple other parents that were at our previous daycare, it was kind of gut-wrenching. Our in-home daycare, who had been doing it for 20 some years, was asked to kind of be in charge of another daycare that was opening up, which totally respect her decision, because I mean, you get a little bit more freedom than when you're running an in-home daycare. And but yeah, she ended up leaving, and we were kind of all scrambling to figure it out. And I had heard that once he was opening, and I jumped all over it, and I think a couple others followed as well. So it was a lifesaver, and we've loved you guys, and you guys have done an amazing job. And I would love to see more daycares like your guys's for sure. But obviously it takes a village, a community, the really building, because I mean, I think with you guys being able to incorporate it into the church, you can offset maybe some expenses elsewhere to help everybody thrive.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's been wonderful having the church have my back, and helping with the accounting and just helping with day-to-day functions. I mean, we even have like our receptionist that she has her background check and her fingerprinting done. And so sometimes when we have all those infants that are all crying, it's, oh, come, please help us, come hold a baby. Yeah. And so it's been really wonderful having the church have our back and I would not have been able to do it without the church by my side.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Is there anything that you guys need, or that you are looking to get help from now or in the future, maybe from somebody who's watching this and says, hey, I would love to come hold a baby for a little while? Do you take volunteers at all?
Yes. So any volunteer does need to have their central registry check done, and that is just child and abuse, neglect, and abuse registry. And then their fingerprinting done. So we were very thorough with that. Volunteers, those are kind of the only two things that they need to have done. For staff to come work here, they have to have central registry, the fingerprinting, but then they also have to do continuing education as well. So we do a lot of training throughout the year as well. But yep, just to volunteer to come hold babies, you can reach out to us. We'll get all your background checks all done. And then, I mean, we do have people who will just come and hold babies, because it's the sweetest thing to hold babies.
Yeah, especially when you're retired or you don't have any kids at home or grandkids at home, I mean, I would go hold babies if I didn't have anything else. I would absolutely do that, So, and then you had talked about earlier, there's a website that people can go to find daycares that maybe potentially have openings, or they can at least call them to see if they do. What is that website?
So you can just Google the Child Care Referral Network in Nebraska, and it'll pop up. You can search by zip code, you can search by the name, you can search by the city, and that will give you a complete listing of licensed daycares in Nebraska, as well as if the center has updated it, it will give you, do they have openings, how many, what rooms. So it's they do try to keep it updated.
Yeah, but even if it doesn't show that there's any updates, I would still recommend calling, because you never know.
You never know.
And it'd be hard for daycares to constantly update that on a regular basis. But that obviously would not include non-licensed in-home daycares, right?
It does include in-home daycares, but only licensed ones.
Yeah. Okay. So. Okay. Do you know how many daycares we have here in Columbus? Do you have an idea?
When I was filling out that grant last year, I was very surprised at the amount of.
Oh, really? Like there's more than you expected?
There was more than I had expected. And they were all pretty full. I think that I was more surprised by the amount of centers that we had and their license capacity versus how much they were filled. So, for example, our license, we can have 150 kids here. We have 75,000 square feet, and so we can have a lot of kids. However, like room ratio. So in one of our rooms, I think it's like a 22 by 40 room. It can hold 22 children. And and you look in there, we only put 12 kids in there because it seems insane to have that amount of kids in there.
Yeah.
And so it actually, when you look it up, the license capacity versus their actual, like they might just have 30 kids and they're able to have 150.
Wow.
So, but again, it's worth calling and seeing. There are quite a few in-homes, but I do know there's quite a few that have closed over the last year as well.
Yeah.
So,
So where are you guys at for capacity wise? Are you taking on more kids at this time or?
Yeah. So we have 68 children enrolled in here. We have, when we open up the preschool room, we'll have about 8 more. Otherwise, the preschool and the infant rooms are full right now.
Yep.
And then after the toddler rooms, we do have a couple openings in, as we just had a couple toddlers age up to preschool, giving us those toddler openings.
Yep.
So we do have a couple openings. And then depending on the age, like if your infant is almost a toddler, we would be able to take them for those few short months until we get more infants in here. So it's always worth giving them a call.
Yeah.
Even when they say that they're full, it's always worth giving them a call.
Yeah.
And I have had parents who have walked in tears saying that they have had daycare and that they shut down or they have to go back to work next week from maternity leave and their daycare provider forgot about them. And so it has, and I have squeezed them in here just because it's heartbreaking for parents, you know? And so it's always worth checking out. It always is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys are at 68. You can have a capacity of 150 because of your square footage or what? Okay.
It actually comes down to bathrooms is the funny
thing.
So you have to have one bathroom or one toilet and one sink per 15 kids.
Really?
Yes, yep. And so we're capped at 150 by which bathrooms that we use here because we don't use any of the public bathrooms here.
Oh, you don't? Oh,
no, we do not.
So
use
you have
the public bathrooms,
separate ones to be able to count towards all of that. Oh my gosh, how many bathrooms are in this building?
You know, it made the newspaper when we opened this building about how many bathrooms were in this building.
How many?
I don't remember what it was, but I remember saying that we had the most toilet sink pairs than anywhere else in Columbus.
I can only imagine if you're not even using the public ones.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, there's so much more that goes into daycare and facilities. Just things simple like that is absolutely insane that you probably were not even expecting, you know, to be a hurdle to kind of overcome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of other rules and regulations that you have to abide by that are probably to you don't make a lot of sense, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
some make you raise your eyebrow for sure.
Yeah.
And then other ones that aren't there is like, this is a rule, but this isn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that's just everything in this world anymore, that there's rules out there that shouldn't be and vice versa. So, but no, I appreciate you sitting down with me and talking to me about daycare. I know it's a struggle for many parents to find a good one, to find the right one, or like you said, coming back from maternity leave and their other daycare left. But I think really that website, I was not aware of that. So it's nice to know what there are websites out there that have updated licensed daycare facilities or in-home licensed daycares that people can check out. And again, call them, whether it says that they're full or not, give them a call. And it's good to hear that you felt that there was a lot more in Columbus than you expected, because I feel most people are the other way around, that we have very few daycares, which is true with the amount of population that we have. But it's a good website to jump onto to take a look at if you're needing daycare. I know the cost is up there, but for me, it was more about when I had 3 kids and daycare at one time. It got very expensive. Didn't make a whole lot of sense financially at the time. But at the same time, for my mental health and my sanity, I needed that break from my kids. I love my children dearly. But I think at some point in time, every parent needs that break from their own kids. But so I appreciate you doing this with us today. So if you guys have any questions, if you want to jump on to what is your website, if they have any questions, or who can they contact?
They can go on onecchurch.com.
Okay.
Or they can call us here as well.
The other thing that you guys offer is Blast Camp. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that? Because that also sets you apart. I know it's 2 different things, but it still makes it very convenient.
It is still childcare. Yes. So Blast is completely separate from the daycare, and that you don't need to license a school age program. And so you would not find Blast on the Nebraska Child Care Referral. We did not personally think that it contributed to the quality of the program. And so we chose, and there's a lot of hurdles and obstacles and whatnot that you have to follow to be licensed. And so we thought, you know what, if we don't need to, I know my quality and my expectations are up here, and I can trust that. Yep. So a few years ago when we started Blast, there was no program for school age children here in Columbus. And that was just a problem because there was nowhere for all these school kids to go. I mean, you think about all the kids that we have in our public school system, that is a lot of kids. Yeah. And so we started thinking about, well, we have this huge facility. We have 2 gyms. We have a huge field house. They get rented out in the evenings for baseball and taekwondo. Mm-hmm. But during the daytime, this church sat empty. I mean, we have 75,000 square feet and it sat empty all day long. And so we just kind of brainstormed, like, how can we use this, what this program can do? So we created just the summer only, and it was 6 weeks the first year. And then the second year we did 8 weeks. Last summer, I think we did 10 or 11 weeks. And we got a bus. So, I mean, as great as the facility is with the inflatables, with the drift trikes, with everything that we have, 10 weeks in one building is a lot. And so
for you.
Well,
it's great for parents.
So we got this bus thinking, let's get them out. So last year we did $5 field trips where we could go bowling, we could go out to Camp Luther and go hiking, kayaking, all sorts of fun stuff out at Camp Luther. We've done the Hornty Zoo, the Children's Museum's opening up soon, so we'll be able to go do that. So it just kind of helped us to grow the program even more. And it wasn't obligated. Like you could stay here, you could go on the field trip. And so when kids were just starting to get kind of like, oh, I never want it to be those different variety available was amazing.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, awesome, Brittany. I took up enough of your time, so I will let you go today. I know you got 68 kids to get back to, mine included, so I'm going to bail out before she sees me. But if you guys, like I said, we talked about daycares here in Columbus. You can get onto that registry, check it out, see what licensed daycares are here in Columbus. One C or Bright Stars is an amazing place as well. I don't know how many openings you have or how many people you want to continue to coming in, but I know you're going to be opening up another room here soon. But tons of great daycares here in Columbus that you can trust. The people are great. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to them or jump onto the website online. And thank you for tuning in.